touched on it there by saying that labor unions in 2024, I mean, the government sector labor unions, they're going to go Liberal every time, or even NDP.
Or NDP, yeah.
But private sector unions, it would be really weird for them to go for the NDP or the Liberals because, as you say, it's guys making low six figures. You know, it's hard, like hardworking guys, but they have a level of wealth, and they typically have hardworking men who tilt conservative. And I want to show you just very quick clips. I don't want to play too long, but when Jagmeet Singh was talking about standing with the workers and standing against the rich CEOs, I thought, who are you? You think you're Tommy Douglas? I mean, I don't know if you saw it out there in Edmonton, but in Toronto, there's sort of a fancy fashion, sort of upmarket magazine called Toronto Life. And it's sort of an aspirational style mag. And Jagmeet Singh, who's a handsome man, posed for a series of glamour shots in his fine bespoke suits. And he's got a BMW. And he's a wealthy man who he's a handsome man, but he dresses like he's a model, and he drops, I don't know where he gets his money from, but the guy's rich. For him to say he's with the working class, it just doesn't really ring true. Here's Pierre Poilievre, who he accuses of being anti-labor and pro-CEO. I just want to give you two clips. I'm not going to play the long, but I just saw this the other day. I don't know if you saw it, Lorne. Pierre Poilievre put out a video on Labor Day that I thought, you know what? He is going for working class conservatives, sort of like Trump did. Trump, the billionaire, well, I think he knew how to talk to the working class. Here's a clip of Pierre Poilievre on Labor Day. Tell me who is going to connect more with workers, fancy-pantsy Jagmeet Singh or fairly normal guy Pierre Poilievre with this kind of a vid.
A country is built by the people who rise when it is still dark. The servers and soldiers, the farmers and factory hands, the nurses and night shift workers, often called ordinary people, but they are extraordinary. They carry the government on their backs with little reward. You now pay more to bring home less. That is if you can afford a home at all. Many live in fear of crime and chaos, but there is a new dawn rising, where hard work is rewarded, where there's affordable food and a home in a safe neighborhood, where everyone gets a fair shot at a good life, where common sense is common, and where, after the night, no matter how long or dark, comes morning. Let's bring it home.
So that's Pierre Poilievre speaking quite honestly and candidly. I mean, it feels authentic. Compare that to what he said about CEOs. He practically sounds like a Marxist when he's bashing CEOs as a class. He says, "Don't you send your lobbyists to me," and you know he's not the kind of guy who would go to. You mentioned Mulrooney earlier. Mulrooney would hang out with the Council of CEOs. I forget what it used to be called. They used to be big players. This Council of CEOs, like the Plutocrat Club. Here's Pierre Poilievre from a few months ago, where he basically says, I don't give a damn about your CEOs. Take a look at this.
This is the first time I have spoken to either a Chamber of Commerce or a Board of Trade since I became leader of the Common Sense Conservatives 2 years ago. During that time, I've spoken at 110 shop floors and 5 union local facilities. And the reason why this is only my first chamber or board of trade is nothing to do with my view on business. I love business. I love free enterprise. I love the people who risk their entire worth their entire family savings in order to start a business and build their dreams. Rather, the reason this is my first time speaking to a business association of this type is because my experience with the corporate lobbyists in Ottawa, the main groups there, have been that they have been utterly useless in advancing any common sense interests for the people on the ground. The corporate lobbyists in Ottawa are focused on getting lunches with ministers at the Rideau Club or showing off their latest ESG brochure, or expecting that politicians are going to do things for them without actually convincing the people on the ground of the benefit to them. My common sense plan to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime is a bottom-up free enterprise agenda, not a top-down state capitalism agenda. It is not about politicians and CEOs working together for their own interests. It is about unleashing the power of free enterprise so that workers and entrepreneurs and consumers can exchange the voluntary purchase of goods for services, goods for dollars, of investment for interest, and of work for wages.
So I just don't think it's going to stick. And when you look at demographic support for Pierre Poilievre, I think he's going to get more working class support than Jagmeet Singh. Yeah. And let me ramble for one more minute, Lorne. In Trudeau's clip, he talked about the big corporations. Who's giving tens of billions of dollars to foreign automakers to build electrical cars in Ontario? That's not the Conservatives, the so-called party of the little guy, the coalition between Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau. They've given tens of billions of dollars in subsidies to the richest multinational companies around. I don't know. I just don't think that their class struggle, traditional arguments are working in 2024.
No, they're not. And it's interesting. There's never a direct parallel between American politics and Canadian politics. But this week, the New York Times had some fascinating polling numbers on swing voters, people who are neither dedicated Democrats nor staunch Republicans. And they tended to be more men. They tended to be in trades and in skilled positions rather than in academic positions or professions. And the number one things for them, it's interesting, it was an interesting combination. It was economic, standard of living, cost of living issues, and woke agenda. And if we're at all like that in Canada, there are an awful lot of people who are adrift at the moment because the two parties that they would normally have chosen between, the Liberals and the New Democrats, neither one of them represents their interests, nor knows how to speak to them, nor understands where they're at in the given moment. Who don't care. They're not worried about whether or not there is a capital gains tax on wealthy Canadians and CEOs, which is an obsession of both the NDP and the Liberals. What they care about is somebody who's saying, look, I understand that it's gotten harder every time you go to the grocery store for you to fill your cart with the food that your family needs. And we're going to do everything we can to bring those prices down. The NDP and the Liberals say, oh, that's because there are nasty, greedy CEOs in charge of all of the groceries. No, it's not. Yeah. It's because you put taxes on everything that moves.
Yeah.
If I am going to try and plow a field, I got a carbon tax. Well, there's some of the farmers' stuff doesn't have carbon tax on, but pretty much everything from tilling the soil to driving the trucks to the grocery store to you driving to the grocery store to get it, you've increased the price because you put a carbon tax on. Yeah. And then you spent so much money that you drove up inflation on the monetary side. And then, you've allowed in last year about 2.3 million new Canadians, all of whom are, I don't blame them. You and I have had this conversation before. I do not blame the people who have been let in legally by this government. But they're all looking for healthcare. They're all looking for jobs. They're all looking for housing. That's, of course, pushed the price up on all of those things in the free market and reduced the availability of them in the public sector. So, who created this mess? Yeah, it's not CEOs and wealthy Canadians. It's funny, the Privy Council office, before the federal budget came out in April, did some focus groups in February where they put out what were potential themes from the federal government about what might go into the budget. And they were pushing. The access to information stuff showed they were pushing this idea that the wealthy should pay a greater share. The wealthy, they're getting away with murder. They're, financial murder. That they're the ones who are keeping you down. Mm-hmm. It's real class warfare stuff. And the focus group said, no, we're not interested in that. What we're interested in is people who can bring down the cost of living and help us to buy our first home because the prices are too high. And so it is that bread and butter material that I think Poilievre excels at. And the other two are just off in some sort of Marxist wonderland, blaming the head of Loblaws.